Hi, I'm Pastor Chester Hitchcock, and this is part 5 of my series that I've titled, Is That Really in the Bible?, where I'm examining what some people call phantom texts. If you've been following this series so far, you know that there are a lot of sayings that people use that they think are in the Bible but they're not, or they are misapplied from what the original meaning of the text was when it was written. Not that there's anything wrong with helpful, encouraging words regardless of where they come from. Nevertheless, it's important to differentiate between what really comes from the Bible and what doesn't. Or for that matter, if we are actually using the Bible verse correctly. For this reason, it's good for us to remember what Paul said in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, when he said, "Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, and who correctly handles the word of truth." So let's look at the popular saying, "Spare the rod and spoil the child." This is actually not found in the Bible, but the closest thing is Proverbs chapter 13, verse 24, that says, "He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves his son disciplines him promptly." Now, at first glance, this really isn't that different from "spare the rod and spoil the child." Both appear to mean that if a parent neglects to discipline a child by using some sort of corporal punishment, that is, physical force to cause pain or discomfort, that they hate their child or they are spoiling their child. But there is a growing body of literature on the subject of physical correction that says that spanking and hitting are not nearly as effective in disciplining children as boundaries and logical consequences. You can do that research yourself on Google or any other place. For example, if my goal is not to raise great kids, but to raise kids to be great adults, then it means that I need to prepare them for life. But unless they grow up to be in some sort of dangerous profession like boxing or prize fighting, being physically hit is never going to be a logical consequence to what they're going to face in life. So why, during this time of preparing and molding them to be great adults, would I choose such an unrealistic consequence that isn't really effective anyway? Actually, the problem is with the interpretation in understanding the biblical meaning of the word rod. The word rod in the Bible is interchangeable with that of the shepherd's staff. Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd, and the shepherding imagery was a very natural thing for the biblical writers. And given that Christians desire to be image bearers of Christ, it would seem logical that we would model our parenting upon the model of God, or Jesus himself, the Good Shepherd, keeping in mind that we should not spare the rod from our children. But in proper biblical context, this now looks different than what has been traditionally taught. Number one, the shepherd's staff was constantly in the shepherd's hands as he walked in front of the sheep and served as a visual guide for the sheep to follow. Sheep have a wide field of vision that is better in the peripheral than it is directly ahead, and it's part of the reason why they wander off. And when sheep start to follow other sheep around them, then they get into trouble. But as the shepherd's staff is extended higher than everything else around them and is constantly moving with the shepherd, then their eyes can more easily detect the direction and keep them safe. Furthermore, striking the sheep would actually be counterintuitive, as it might slow them down, it might injure them, or it might make them fear the shepherd. And after all, Psalm chapter 23 verse 4 says, "Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." In biblical times and to this day, shepherds in the Middle East do not walk behind their sheep, prodding them with a rod and barking dogs, but rather they walk ahead of their sheep as their guide. Number two, the rod or the shepherd's staff was used to remove a sheep in danger from harm. The shepherd's staff would have a circular hook sort of up around the top, and this would be used in case of extreme danger to hook around the head and to pull a sheep that was stuck in the mud or stuck in a thicket. The rod or the shepherd's hook was indeed used as a weapon, but it was never used to hit the sheep, but rather to hit the wolves and the mountain lions who threatened the sheep. Number 3, the shepherd's hook was also an extension of the shepherd's hand. As mentioned before, in the case of a shepherd, it was sometimes used to rescue or to comfort a sheep or to defend them from a predator. But it was also a form of balance for the shepherd in rough terrain. So the shepherd's rod or the shepherd's hook had to do with balance for the shepherd himself and instruction and safety and direction and guidance for the sheep. So I hope that by now you see how wonderful the imagery of not sparing the rod can be a useful guide to disciplining children, but only in the context of what the rod meant in biblical times. When the shepherd's rod or staff is used to protect your child, to comfort them, to give them guidance and direction, to help you with balance, instead of being some sort of physical punishment when they misbehave, we reflect the Good Shepherd Jesus Christ to our children that helps them grow up to be good adults. So if this video has been interesting or helpful to you, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and choose all to make sure that you get a notification the next time that a video is produced. God bless. I'll see you in the next video.